EBEs. Quote, to think of these stars that you see overhead at night, these vast worlds which we can never reach. I would annex the planets if I could. I often think of that. It makes me sad to see them so clear and yet so far. End quote, Cecil Rhodes. When most people think of aliens, they think of foreigners residing in a country illegally, or those little green men with big eyes. These latter entities are commonly referred to as the Greys because of the color of their skin, which is not green at all, but grayish in tone, as the name implies. The Greys are the most widely reported alien species encountered worldwide, and the full spectrum study of all ET relations with Earth humans is called exopolitics. There are many species of Greys, varying in size and skin tone, but they all belong to the same hive mentality of the reptoid species of ETs, which also include the tall reptilian alpha draconians. There are many other alien life forms reported to be interacting with Earth humans, some who look much like we do, many with helping us in mind, while others are out to exploit us and consider us as livestock. What is rarely touched by the major news outlets in reporting on UFOs, let alone intelligent alien life forms called extraterrestrial biological entities by the military, shortened to EBEs. What follows is a synthesis of the most commonly reported data points about EBEs, when they were first discovered, what they look like, and what their motives might be here on Earth. The most commonly discussed EBE is the reptoid species called the Greys, which have been captured and studied since the rash of UFO crashes recoveries beginning in the late 1940s. Most of the Greys report they come from two planets rotating around the binary star system of Zeta Reticuli, located in the constellation Reticulum, which can be seen from our southern sky. Since a live Grey was found in the 1947 Roswell crash, it has been observed that captured Greys must be kept in an electromagnetic shielded environment so that they cannot escape. They can literally walk through walls. A few years later, the Greys made a formal agreement with the USA to exchange high technology for permission to work here on genetic engineering. The Grey aliens were given permission under the Greada Treaty, originally signed by President Eisenhower, to operate clandestinely in their specifically designed underground bases. The most renowned is below the Jicarilla Apache Reservation at the Four Corners region in northern New Mexico, another located in the vast Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. And there are likely many others, including the Los Alamos National Laboratory. What is known is that the physical system of the Greys is chlorophyll-based, and all are essentially synthetic test tube entities with incredible cognitive abilities. The body of a Grey alien processes food in a similar way that plants do, and their excretions are also the same as plants. Greys are known to deceive and lie to humans. Some claim to come from a red planet revolving around a star in Orion called Betelgeuse. Some Greys say they are from the star system Rigel, and others claim they are from two planets revolving around the binary star system Zeta Reticuli. One of those planets is planet Serpo. Panspermia. Let's back up a little bit. In 1996, a NASA researcher named David McKay reported he had found traces of Martian life inside a meteorite recovered in 1984 from the Allen Hills region in Antarctica. The origins and continuation of microscopic life spreading throughout the universe became known as the phenomenon called panspermia. McKay is not the only researcher from NASA to claim a discovery of alien life inside meteorites. In March 2011, another NASA scientist reinvigorated the debate over life elsewhere in the cosmos after claiming to have found tiny fossils of, quote, alien bugs, end quote, inside meteorites that landed on Earth. Richard Hoover, an astrobiologist at the U.S. Space Agency's Marshall Space Flight Center in Alabama, said filaments and other structures in rare meteorites appear to be microscopic fossils of extraterrestrial beings that resemble algae known as cyanobacteria. Hoover, an expert on life in extreme environments, has reported similar structures in meteorites several times before. After a balloon came back from a high-altitude flight in 2015, it was covered with microscopic life forms that originated from space, suggesting the ancient remains of alien life, or directed panspermia. The co-discoverer of DNA, Francis Crick of Cambridge University, believed human genes could not have evolved on Earth by chance, given only 500 to 600 million years of evolution from the primeval soup to modern humans. This conventional belief in human evolution is extremely unlikely. Francis Crick was a proponent of the directed panspermia theory. An interesting aspect of these stories is that although each were distributed by the major news outlets, little or no follow-up occurred, much less exploring EBE life forms or the implications of the panspermia theory. The biologic unit of material life is the protoplasmic cell, the communal association of chemical, electrical, and other basic energies. The chemical formulas differ in each system, and the technique of living cell reproduction is slightly different in each local universe, but the life carriers are always the living catalysts who initiate the primordial reactions of material life. They are the instigators of the energy circuits of living matter directed throughout the universe. The prime directive. The law of planetary free will, or the prime directive, as popularized by the Star Trek franchise, is a real cosmic law. Benevolent ETs have not been allowed to intervene on Earth beyond a minimal level due to what has been called a quarantine that is imposed by the Confederation of Planets to protect Earth, humanity's free will, from undue influence. In the case of Star Trek, sometimes art does imitate life, but this is not by accident. Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry was said to have been allowed to take notes during several Council of Nine channeled sessions with ETs when he was scriptwriting for the popular television series. Direct intervention with people on primitive and spiritually evolving planets, Earth being a good example, is not allowed. Other beings are permitted only to observe emerging civilizations. A long-standing edict prohibits the unauthorized or forcible colonization of planets. However, in some cases, benevolent ETs have chosen to intervene in certain affairs in order to ensure the longevity of an observed planet and civilization. Although the ETs seem to have no interest in conquering Earth or in controlling the population of this planet, it does serve their interest to ensure that the resources of Earth are not destroyed or spoiled. To that end, certain ETs have been sent to Earth on reconnaissance missions from time to time to gather information. Nuclear war was a very real threat in the 1950s, and so it remains today. We do not hear about this threat as urgently any longer, but the largest nations of the world are armed to the teeth with planet-killing weapons. This problem has apparently caused the ETs to intervene much more directly in our planet's affairs than they normally would have, but this is strictly in order to prevent the possibility of a nuclear exchange. ETs have been systematically deactivating nuclear sites ever since Earth humans began building them, regardless in which country they were found. This also includes China, India, and Russia. The quarantine, or prime directive, led to a false complacency within the ranks of the reptoid dark forces, who came to think they were manipulating the right humans to covertly direct the course of civilization on Earth. They believed the benevolent ETs were totally powerless to do anything to stop them via universal law, and could only stand back and cry in horror as they enslaved the planet. They justified their human experiments based on the cruelty that humans exhibit to farm animals, for example, and the ongoing exploitation of Earth's natural resources. If humans were treating the living organisms of the world that way, they could do the same to us. Unfortunately, our government under Eisenhower made a pseudo-legal binding agreement with certain negative extraterrestrial groups, disallowing the good ETs to interfere with our free choice, unless humans would endanger our planet, solar system, or anywhere in the galaxy. Only in this capacity, the good ETs have been systematically deactivating nuclear missiles in restricted areas for decades. The Confederation ETs would not usually destroy the missile sites. They merely deactivated the warheads in what appeared to be their telling us that they have the capabilities to completely shut down our weapon systems in the event that any significant nuclear exchange is executed. The prime directive regarding Earth seems to have diminished once we entered the nuclear age. There are now much greater consequences. The ability for some militaries of the world to create massive destruction radiates outward and adversely affects our solar system, our galaxy, and even our universe. We are not an isolated planet. What we do here really does affect the universe. Therefore, we incorporate the universe into our affairs with the continued explosions of our nuclear bombs. This escalation in the proliferation of weaponry has caused the prime directive to virtually no longer be in effect. In 2011, the UFO blogosphere was alight with news that the Andromeda Council won a series of battles within our solar system, ridding almost all of the malevolent entities on behalf of the people of Earth. The Andromedan Council had to persuade others within the Confederation of Planets to intercede on Earth's behalf. Extensive discussions were held, and a new law was passed overriding what is ubiquitously known as the Prime Directive of Non-Interference. A conscious, collective decision was made by the Council to break precedent and do this simply because Earth's people were at a distinct disadvantage living a third-dimensional life. The humans simply did not have the fourth-dimensional physiology, knowledge, tools, or technology to win against the Draconians and Greys. Why are the Greys here on Earth? In appearance, the most commonly viewed gray alien is about 1 meter tall, a hominoid in appearance with grayish skin, and usually 3 spindly fingers and a thumb on each hand. Their feet also have 4 digits. On the end of each of the 4 fingers are little pads resembling suction cups. Their heads are very large in proportion to their frail-looking bodies. Their large almond-shaped eyes appear even bigger, and they never blink. On their disproportionately large heads, the eyes are uniformly reported as deeply set. The skulls are soft and flexible. The nose is concave with only 2 orifices. The mouth is a fine slit, and inside the mouth there is heavy cartilage instead of teeth, resembling rawhide. The ears are only small orifices with flaps. They have no hair, and the skin is a grayish hue in color with some variation. Their mannerisms have been compared to insects. There are several different varieties of grays, maybe perhaps hundreds, as their height, weight, and digits on their hands and feet can vary depending on what task they were developed to perform. Sex organs no longer function, and all grays are genetically manufactured entities. Their hominoid bodies appear to move more like insects than mammals, especially their hands. Amongst all grays, communication is strictly telepathic, as their mouths can no longer speak. Since they have lost their capacity for love and natural sexual reproduction, their genetic strength is breaking down. They need fresh human DNA and animal reproductive tissues to ensure the survival of their species. True or not, the Greys, known as the Arcturians, claim to be partly responsible for much of life that exists on Earth. This is how they justify avoiding the Prime Directive and have remained here for eons. The Arcturians are one of the oldest alien species in our galaxy, yet other species of malevolent Greys arrived more recently. The fact that certain Greys continue to harvest cattle and abduct humans attests to their prowess as master genetic scientists. Indeed, without love as a way to organically reproduce, certain strains of Greys are dying breeds. They are no longer able to reproduce naturally by having sex. The Greys' genetic structure is deteriorating, and they are abducting humans for genetic experiments to strengthen their own DNA strain. In addition to human experiments, bovine organic material allows the Greys to feed and create their own test tube entities right here on Earth. Master genetic scientists. As extremely adept genetic scientists who even manufacture themselves as their own life forms, the Greys have stated that evolution is untrue. They deny the notion that the creation of any life form could have resulted from a coincidental chemical interaction moldering up from some primordial ooze. To them, highly complex mammal evolution is beyond absurdity. Certainly some organisms on Earth, such as protobacteria, are modifications of a phylum designed primarily for planets similar to Earth, where they have been terraforming this planet from the earliest time millions of years ago. In other words, according to the domain, a kind of authority with which the Greys identify, they have bioengineered every single organism on this planet. After all, ours holds a designation for a planet with an anaerobic atmosphere nearest a large, intensely hot blue star, such as those in the constellation of Orion's belt in this galaxy, which are ideal for terraforming. The cloning of sheep and monkeys is a documented fact in our society, so it is not beyond the limits of possibility to suggest that a high-tech alien culture might, unfortunately, succeed in cloning human hybrids. In fact, we are already cloning ourselves. In July 2011, several articles announced that scientists have created more than 150 human-animal hybrid embryos in British laboratories. These above-ground hybrids have been produced secretly over the past 3 years by researchers looking into possible cures for a wide range of diseases. The revelation comes just a day after a committee of scientists warned of a nightmare Planet of the Apes scenario in which work on human-animal creations goes too far. Creating life forms is very complex, highly technical work for human scientists who specialize in this field, but seemingly simple for the Greys. They claim genetic anomalies, which are very baffling to Earth biologists because Earth humans have had their memories erased between lifetimes. Unfortunately, the false memory implantations prevent Earth scientists from observing obvious anomalies. In recent decades, Earth research physicians have begun to develop advanced biological engineering technology, including heart bypasses, cloning, test tube babies, organ transplants, stem cell regeneration, plastic surgery, genes, chromosomes, and various artificial organs. For the Greys, the greatest technical challenge of creating earthbound biological organisms was the invention of self-regeneration or sexual reproduction. It was invented as the solution to the problem of having to continually manufacture replacement creatures for those that had been destroyed and eaten by other creatures. They claim to have introduced the reproductive trigger used for lesser life forms, such as cattle and other mammals, which is initiated by chemicals emitted from the scent glands, combined with reproductive chemical electrical impulses stimulated by testosterone or estrogen. These are also interactive with nutrition levels, which cause the life form to reproduce more when deprived of food sources. Starvation also promoted reproductive activity as a means of perpetuating survival through future regenerations when the current organism fails to survive. These fundamental principles have been applied throughout all species of life. In regard to their own manufactured bodies, nearly all Greys, especially the space officers and crew members, need container-like bodies to interact on third-dimensional levels. These are the Greys who occupy the spacecraft required to travel through intergalactic space and who have interactions with humans. The Greys are each equipped with a body manufactured from lightweight and durable organic materials. Various body types have been designed to facilitate specialized functions. Some bodies have accessories, such as interchangeable tools or apparatus for activities, such as maintenance, mining, chemical management, navigation, and so on. There are many variations of this body type which also serve as an insignia of rank, including those of a drone soldier or the obedient worker class. Therefore, the appearance, features, composition, and functionality of the different body types of the Greys are highly specialized and limited to the requirements of their duties. Since human abduction experiments began in earnest a half-century ago, about 5,000 cross-breed hybrid Grey human life forms have been created, and some still live on Earth. These hybrids have been programmed since birth with the agenda of the Greys. They will all eventually need to be removed from Earth and deprogrammed so that they may evolve on their own into free-thinking, free-willed beings. And since they are a new sentient life form, they will eventually need to be relocated to their own third-dimensional planet. Because they have been operating so long in our solar system, the Greys consider themselves endemic and believe that they have a right to remain here and harvest organic tissues that they deem necessary. Since they are masters of time and space, the Greys may never fully be eliminated and could very well remain a part of Earth's future. Humanity may even split into two races. There will be those who resemble humans as we look today, who remain on the surface, and those who go to live underground, either by choice or by force, and eventually become an Earth variety of the tall Greys. On human abductions and cattle mutilations. We will examine each of these famous phenomena separately, as they are both rather complicated subjects. Suffice it to say, the Greys are behind both issues. The cattle mutilation phenomenon began to be recorded in the late 1960s, which included genital removal, rectums cored out to the colon, eyes, tongue, and throat tissue all surgically removed with extreme precision. In some cases, the incisions were made by cutting between the cells, a process we are not yet capable of performing. In many of the mutilations, there was no blood found at all within the carcass, and there was no vascular collapse of the internal organs. The Greys from Rigel were empowered after Eisenhower signed the Greada Treaty, which allowed the reptoids limited harvesting in exchange for high technology. They would furnish us advanced technology and in return be allowed to work in underground bases and conduct abductions on a limited basis. Among the most famous abductees is Barney Hill, who along with his wife Betty was abducted by Zeta Reticula Greys in 1961. Many others were to follow. The Greys are mainly working on hybrid humans, clones, and genetic strengthening of their own DNA. They also work alongside a small permanent population of reptilian alpha draconians who are in charge of all the malevolent beings on this planet. Strangely, there are times when the Greys have shown signs of benevolence or compassion and extreme intelligence when dealing with their human subjects. Portions of the US military in the service of the Black Space Operations is said to be monitoring the Greys in their abduction and mutilation agenda. Hybridization their species using bovine hemoglobin to culture egg cells, to fertilize alien DNA in their labs, and possibly to produce hybrid warriors for their secret space program. The Greys have a major base of operations located underneath Dulce, New Mexico, which is so vast it also extends under the Ute Reservation in southwestern Colorado. Nordics. The human-like Nordic ETs look very similar to Northern European Scandinavians, hence their association with the Nordic people. The Lyrians are the oldest ancestors of the Nordic ETs, and 4 known subspecies are actively interacting with Earth. The Nordic's height can be extremely tall or very short in human terms. A full-grown adult can range in height from 1 meter to 2.5 meters tall. Although one race comes from the Pleiades star system, they have had an interaction with Earth for a very long time and even shared with us some of the suffering we now experience. Project Plato was the original government diplomatic effort with all ETs. The Pleiadians, sometimes pronounced Plagiarans, are here for our evolution into a golden age. It was the Pleiadians who met with Air Force officers at Homestead, Florida in 1954 and offered assistance in ridding our planets of the Greys. They demanded that Earthlings advance in a spiritual development before any technology could be traded. This notion was shunned by the administration, essentially because of its myopic focus on weapons to be used for defense. While it is often believed that most aliens are an unfriendly bunch, there are a few species that have been on Earth for centuries who serve to disprove this claim. The most important European base for the Nordics was in Italy. One of its entryways was at the Rocca Pia Castle. Interestingly, the Rocca Pia Castle belongs to the Orsini and Colonna families, who are very important in Italian history. Both families belong to the black aristocracy, basically the papal families, and both sired more than one pope. The main portion of the Nordic base in Europe was actually under the seabed. It was located deep under the Adriatic Sea, and it stretched from Ortona to Rimini in eastern Italy. The larger underwater base was almost in contact with the continental shelf. Italy was one of the first countries to study UFOs. Original documents with Benito Mussolini's signature and other paperwork watermarks prove the Italians have observed an ET presence since at least the 1930s. Project Grudge is the MJ-12 study of any and all ET contact globally, which is tasked to document everything we know about them or any interactions. Indeed, we're not the only tenants in the building. For thousands of years, indigenous Nordic ETs, also called the Telosians, were concentrated in the mythical mountains of Tibet. They also have bases in the Americas, at one of the highest areas of the Andes, an underground city at Mount Shasta called Telos, and another in the Canadian Yukon Territory. Another long-standing base is under Lake Titicaca because it is situated in a high place at 3,800 meters above sea level. An uninhabited island in Lake Titicaca is the closest physical point to both a lodge of the Great White Brotherhood and a Galactic Confederation base here on Earth. Mount Shasta had been an important underground base to the Great White Brotherhood, but provocations from the US government prompted them to move most of their North America operations to the Yukon. Thousands of years of scientific advancements have given the Telosians the ability to circumvent disease and aging. The Telosians are widely known for their longevity and could help us with our own. They are also true protectors of the Earth's environment and keepers of knowledge about our planet's past. Body types of the tall blondes are predetermined largely by the type and size of the star around which their planet revolves, the distance from the star, and the geological as well as atmospheric components of the planet. On average, these stars and planets fall into gradients of classification, which are fairly standard throughout the universe. For example, Earth is identified as a Sun Type 12 Class 7 planet. That is a heavy gravity, nitrogen, oxygen-rich atmosphere planet with biological life forms in proximity to a single yellow, medium-sized, low-radiation sun or Type 12 star. Biological human flesh bodies live for only a very short time, only 60 to 150 years at most, whereas the manufactured doll bodies of the Greys can be reused and repaired almost indefinitely. The Greys, of course, are not part of the Confederation, but then neither are Earth humans. We need to develop more as a conscious species first. The human form is the predominant life form in the universe, and currently Earth is the most populated planet. There are upwards of 30 billion human-like beings in the Milky Way galaxy alone. EBE bases on Earth. It has been observed for some time that the ETs operate their bases underground and below the seas. Over time, an earthbound ET race known as the Alpha Centaurians evolved into an aquatic species with gills and webbed limbs. Some researchers believe they are responsible for most of the underwater and the USO phenomenon. But in general, ETs can construct an underground base by opening a hole, then compressing the material of the Earth into hard walls. The bases do not need to have an entrance. The ETs just open up a hole in the ground and can access their artificial chambers. The base requires a force field to remain in use. The ETs utilize technology to displace the atoms of the rock and soil into a parallel reality known as time-space, liquefying the atoms and then pushing them into walls while they are in that configuration. Once the fields are turned off, the Earth naturally reassumes its original shape. In 1953, contact was made with benevolent, human-looking EBEs who warned us of the dangerous EBEs and offered to help us with our spiritual development. But they refused our request for advanced technology. Unless we disarmed our nuclear arsenals, the Nordics said, they would not give us advanced technology. They reasoned that we'd use it against ourselves. First, the Nordics said, we must stop killing each other. Second, we must stop exploiting the earth and having little regard for animals. We must stop raping the earth's resources and learn to live in harmony. These overtures were rejected because nuclear disarmament was deemed unrealistic. This decision could have been made because some of the generals were abducted, implanted, and working for the reptilians already, possibly unknowingly. On April 15th, 1964, 2 U.S. intelligence personnel met under Project Plato with the Greys in the New Mexico desert to arrange for a formal meeting on April 25 at Holloman Air Force Base. This meeting was to renew the 10-year treaty that had started in 1934 and was renewed consistently every decade. It was a psychological bid to buy time in order to solve the problem of the Greys and Draco reptilians. The covert treaty stated that in return for the Greys providing high technology, the U.S. federal government would allow the Greys to proceed unhindered with human abductions for use in an ongoing ET genetic program. By 1964, the upper levels of the U.S. intelligence believed that the Greys and the Dracos had this planet timetabled for invasion and takeover between the years 2000 and 2030. This would take place under the auspices of an alien false flag invasion event. The Andromedan Council also knew this and stepped in during the first decade of the 21st century and began to clear out reptilian underground and undersea bases using highly accurate and highly focused sonic beams to destroy the bases and tunnel systems. The ground underneath the United States had the highest concentration of these malevolent beings. The moderate 2011 earthquakes felt in Virginia, Colorado, New Mexico, Nevada, and other states were the effects of clearing out the Dracos and Greys from their protected underground bases. The effort is ongoing and for the most part successful, but there are still some remaining underground and undersea reptilian operating bases. The various federations and councils. Most of the Nordic races belong to the Confederation of Planets, also called the Galactic Confederation, which has operational bases on both Venus and one of the moons on Jupiter named Ganymede. This confederation was responsible for the Prime Directive, as discussed earlier. Some of the ETs in the Confederation of Planets are very different looking from Earth-like Nordics, including those who form the Great White Brotherhood, originally from Venus in our solar system. One common trait of all the advanced extraterrestrial visitors within the Confederation is their complete dedication to nonviolent ethics. This is how they communicate, operate missions together, and even love one another. The Galactic Confederation is closely monitoring Earth and has been establishing a bridge of communication with receptive humans for several decades. For their part, it is a program of assistance in a very non-direct way. It is a mission of contact between the evolved worlds that occupy our Milky Way galaxy, those who form the Confederation of Planets, have seen that not only are great changes in consciousness taking place on Earth, but also within the whole galaxy. They claim our planet, as we know it, has not finished evolving and is about to make a huge shift. It is still transforming itself on a consciousness level. Within this transformation, it is up to us, willing individuals, to take a part and assume a role regarding the planetary changes that are happening. When we finally do reach a critical mass of aligned humans, we will be welcomed into the galactic community. When that happens, we will sit around the table with our benevolent galactic governing body, the Confederation of Planets. The Confederation of Planets was founded over 4.5 million years ago to prevent interdimensional dark forces from dominating and exploiting the Milky Way and other galaxies. At present, there are over 200,000 member star nations, confederations, or unions. Approximately 40% are humanoids, and the remaining 60% are varied forms of sentient beings. Most members of the Confederation of Planets are fully conscious beings. Another member star nation with close ties to Earth are the Andromedeans, founders of the Andromedean Council, who are humanoids similar in appearance to Earth humans. The benevolent Sirius A is part of the Confederation, but they are not to be confused with Sirius B, who are malevolent and at odds with their Sirius A neighbors. The Sirians have waged war in the past with the Draco-Orion forces, or the Unholy Six reptilian star systems located in the Orion Open Cluster. Conversely, the group going by the name Galactic Federation of Light is co-opting the name to trick us. They are using the name to confuse us and are actually from the Orion group. Although they can alter themselves to look very human-like, they are in fact reptilian species by their genetic makeup. Also, there appears to be more than one blonde human society involved in the UFO scenarios, and subterranean human societies may have developed blonde hair due to a lack of sunlight. There does not seem to be anything more than a peripheral connection between the blonde Telosians who live below Mount Shasta, the Pleiadians, and other benevolent off-planet Nordics, or the newly created Antarctican Aryans born since the founding of New Berlin. The Antarcticans may consist largely of batch-consigned, purebred, blue-eyed, blonde Aryans who became victims of Hitler's obsession. Conversely, the group going by the name Galactic Federation of Light is co-opting the name to trick us. They are using the name to confuse us and are actually from the Orion group. Although they can alter themselves to look very human-like, they are in fact reptilian species by their genetic makeup. Also, there appears to be more than one blonde human society involved in the UFO scenarios, and subterranean human societies may have developed blonde hair due to the lack of sunlight. There does not seem to be anything more than a peripheral connection between the blonde Telosians who live below Mount Shasta, the Pleiadians, and other benevolent off-planet Nordics, or the newly created Antarctican Aryans born since the founding of New Berlin. The Antarcticans may consist largely of batch-consigned, purebred, blue-eyed, blonde Aryans who became victims of Hitler's obsession to create a super race. Most of these may be controlled through mind manipulation and implants, being human drones who are used to keep this hidden society functioning. An easy way to differentiate the many agendas and races is simply to determine if an ET group is of service to self-orientated or in service to others. There are several other affiliated councils throughout the universe, some formal members of the Andromedan Council, some not. Some willing to help the people of Earth in its process of evolution, and some who only wish to exploit. The Andromedan Council is an intergalactic governance body of affiliated star systems and planets. It is made up of worlds, peoples, and beings that are third dimensional, but primarily fourth plus some fifth and sixth dimensional beings. They are of varying skin colors, sizes, and races, and many of these entities are very human looking, although each is in a different stage of evolution. One of the affiliated councils is the Galactic Federation, which is a federation of star systems and planets of benevolent beings based in the Tau Ceti star system. The Galactic Federation is comprised of approximately 140 star systems and, at present, 300 planets. It has its own sitting council representing its own star systems and planets. It is led by a chairman from the Tau Ceti star system. The Galactic Federation itself is the 10th senior chaired member of the Andromedan Council. The Federation's lead planet is called Zeta, Xeta. There are 12 senior chaired members of the Andromedan Council. The Andromedan Council maintains that the Earth's people have a right to a fresh, clean, new beginning, free from the serious residual psychological and emotional effects brought on by the Greys, Draco-reptilians, and all their technology. The Andromedan Council appealed to the Galactic Governance Council that they have a special affinity with the humans of Earth and are extremely concerned about the impact of the centuries-old Orion Gray and Draco-reptilian occupations of Earth, our moon, and Mars. Through time travel, the Andromedans were able to figure out where a significant shift in energy occurred that will cause extreme tyranny around the year 2368. This will also affect the Andromedans adversely 350 or so years in our future. They traced it back to our solar system and have been able to track it down further to Earth, our moon, and Mars. Hence, their proactive intervention at this time to ensure humanity enters the golden age. Opposite polarity. We live in a world and universe of duality. There are many extraterrestrial civilizations throughout the galaxy, universe, and omni-universe that have come to Earth to collect commodities and perform experiments for their own selfish purposes. They are not here to be of service. Some of these extraterrestrials are of what might be termed a neutral nature, and some are serving the dark forces. The number of negative extraterrestrials is small compared to the vast number of positive extraterrestrials. However, the negative ones are quite dangerous if not controlled. There is also a malevolent ET confederation, known variously as the Draconian Empire, the Corporate Collective, or the Old World Order Forces. They consist primarily of reptilian ETs from the star system of Alpha Draconis and Hydra, Greys from the Orion group, and the Greys from Zeta Reticuli. Other malevolent ETs include those from Sirius B, Rigel, and elsewhere. The most odious for humans on Earth are the Alpha Draconian reptilian ETs, who have been manipulating humanity for a long time. For the last 5,700 years, they have always found a way to manipulate the right humans to achieve their goals. Recently, under their direction, the old world order has funneled billions of dollars making propaganda movies to prepare humanity for the ultimate 9/11 style false flag operation using Project Blue Beam holograms. They will hoax a massive and totally fake alien invasion. This is the point when the reptoids will assert themselves as overt masters of the planet. This Timeline 2 scenario is called the Orion Conspiracy. There are many hidden agendas present here on Earth. Reptilians are described as being very aggressive and arrogant, and they perceive humans to be nothing more than cattle. The reptilians are operating under a locust mentality because this collectivist mindset automatically opposes sovereign philosophy, which advocates personal freedom. The draconian gray collective of its own initiative will not and cannot cease from its violations and abuses of human cultures throughout the galaxy. The reptilian Dracos are the masters of the dark forces, or all of those species whose philosophy is service to self. They are psychic, adept builders, very smart, very strong physically, and rather tall. They can live hundreds of years, sometimes in seemingly impossible conditions. Not only are they of reptile origin from a faraway galaxy, but they are of an opposite polarity. They have chosen to ignore love and unity with other races. Their main stronghold in the Milky Way galaxy is called the Orion Group, which are a series of neighboring stars in the Orion constellation, those being Betelgeuse, Bellatrix, and Rigel. Excuse me. There are actually 6 planets in the Orion system occupied by a group called the Deros from inner space, and have had to be cordoned off by the good EBEs, and are thus cautious about having any relations with the Orion Nebula. Most EBEs from the Orion group are genetically manipulated and controlled by the Draconians, just as the Zeta Reticulan Greys are manipulated by higher malevolent races, namely the Draconians, in a very rigid hierarchy. The Draconians will not cease their abusive practices unless forced to do so by humanoid cultures that have succeeded in taming their own base, or lower predatory instincts. This could only be accomplished by those possessing a higher than the base predatory physical nature, that is, by those capable of utilizing and exercising the power of their higher spiritual selves. This, too, is how humans can defend themselves from any malevolent ET influence. The reptoids cannot manipulate individuals who have lost fear and anger to a place of love and compassion. Even while spacecraft of the Greys and other advanced entities can travel millions or trillions of light years in a single day, the time required to traverse the space between galaxies is still significant, not to mention the length of time to complete just one set of mission orders. which may require thousands of years. The Orion Empire, the dark forces, are fourth density negative. They are lost in the sense that they have drifted so far from their true nature that despite many attempts, the various councils have been unable to reach them or help them to develop. They exist within their group soul complex, mostly as a group of discarnate entities within the astral planes of the planets they visit. They have no intention of returning home and instead seek to feed off of negative energy to keep themselves going. According to the benevolent ETs, they are disconnected from their inherent natural life force by refusing to abide by the one infinite creator's incarnation principles. They are essentially imprisoned within the fourth density negative cycle, as there is no negative harvest beyond the fourth density. So they spend their time traveling the galaxy, fundamentally using the dark side of the force, in this case negativity, to achieve their means. They will eventually be brought back before the infinite creator and dissolved back into the intelligent infinity, the source of all, though they are being given every chance for as long as possible to learn the error of their ways, return to seeking the positive, and begin their journey back home. The problem is they don't want to go home. They see themselves as being gods and do not intend to submit to the authority of the One. The Draconians. Alpha Draconian Reptilian ETs, or Dracos for short, are omnivores who move across planets like locusts, seeking natural resources, including food, which in this case are humans and certain animals on Earth. When they on occasion use people for food, they prefer adolescents who have yet to be poisoned by Earth toxins. As shocking as this may seem, it suggests an answer to where thousands of missing children have gone, especially those who vanished from New Mexico. The Dracos have two hearts, are between 2 and 4 meters tall, and have the strength of a dozen men. They are very hard to kill, have psychic and technological skills in battle that are thousands of years ahead of ours, and they're cold-blooded. They show no remorse or compassion for an enemy. The Dracos have been manipulating humanity into a nearly invisible system of servitude for thousands of years, feeding off of our labor, energy, and our bodies through the wars that they instigate and the hostile belief systems that they foster in the form of religious and social institutions. They do not wish to be seen, only to direct their control orders to the Greys or certain influential people on Earth they have under their control. These people on Earth have sold out the human race, and in most cases, for their own greed and empowerment. If the Dracos and Greys can hold us back from evolving to the fourth dimension, or possibly jumping straight to the fifth, they can stay in control indefinitely. There is no guarantee we will break the bonds of our current heavy third dimensional reality, and their intention is to hold humans back from evolving to the fourth or fifth density at all costs. The reptoids did not evolve here. They were created elsewhere in the universe and migrated here to exploit our planet. Other ufologists believe that a sentient saurian race naturally evolved during the last stage of Earth's Cretaceous period of the Mesozoic era, departed the planet, then returned 5,700 years ago. Perhaps they left because the asteroid extinction level event that created a hostile living environment for the dinosaurs. It would explain how they have lived underground for so long and avoided the requirements of the Prime Directive. Like the Greys, the Alpha Draconians claim to have genetically seeded our planet thousands of years ago, a reason they used to justify their attempt to retake Earth for their own purposes. They are apparently a major part of a planned invasion, which is eventually turning from a covert infiltration mode to an overt invasion mode as the window of opportunity begins to close. They are currently up against the Confederation of Planets decree to allow the Andromedians to rid them from our solar system. Earth is currently quarantined, with Solar Warden assisting in enforcement. The Draconians are in a race against time between keeping us ignorant or until our human society can make an interplanetary alliance with other human-like benevolent ETs. In such an alliance, humans could accept interstellar power allegiances that could rid the Earth of all reptoid species, similar to the choice Eisenhower was given when first contact was made with the Nordics. Earthlings can still accept the offer of interplanetary alliance with all beings, but we have to come together as a planetary species. Ike didn't know that his agreement with the Greys would be a trick to trade technology for a treaty to experiment upon and exploit the Earth. The Draconians and Greys are attempting to implement their own imperialistic agenda by secretly withholding advanced technology for the betterment of humanity. If we were all made aware of the tremendous technology now available to humans, it would lead to eventual colonization of other planets by Earth and an eventual solution to the population, pollution, food, and other environmental problems. But we are at an extreme disadvantage while still under the reptoid spell. Can we ascend without interference? The first meeting of the Andromedan Council concerning Earth was to decide whether or not to directly intervene. According to an Andromedan contactee named Morane, there were only 78 systems from the Confederation of Planets which originally took up the issue. Of those 78, just short of half decided that they want nothing to do at all with Earth, regardless of our disadvantages. These are star systems that are hundreds of millions of light years away from Earth, even some who have never observed us. They were aware that the vibration of the planet was negative and reflected the general attitude of Earth people. From their perspective, they wanted to have no connection with Earth because humans did not respect themselves, wild or captive animals, or the planet as a whole. What could possibly be the value of Earth humans to the other, higher entities? Fortunately, the majority of the council gave the opinion that because Earth has been heavily manipulated for over 5,700 years, we deserve an opportunity to ascend on our own. We should at least have a chance to prove the other part of the council wrong. Hence, they ordered everything extraterrestrial on the planet, on Earth's moon, and on Mars to leave the solar system. The motive of the council majority is to see how we will act when we are no longer being manipulated. This control will continue for a while longer because the human elite powers that be had worked in concert with the malevolent ETs, and it looked as if they were winning. However, now the human controllers won't have fourth dimensional backup, and that is leading to a much more level playing field. They still sanitize the masses with their agenda through television, religion, and the government. They are still teaching people what to think, but not how to think. If you take what they dish out, you become one of their robots. You become sheeple. This is why there may never be an official disclosure about UFOs or EBEs. The big picture is of a well-populated universe of space-faring beings of very diverse physical attributes. For a number of reasons, some of these ETs have taken an interest in Earth affairs, both out of service to others and of service to self. Their motives depend on whether it is profitable for them to interface with humans in their own self-interest or a cooperative interest for the benefit of a planetary evolution. We live in a galaxy that is teeming with life, including higher intelligence entities in every direction. We're just one of a series of evolutionary products, and by no means the leading one. Star seeds. Those who do not believe any of this will begin to open their minds as Earth consciousness expands, and we will start to see fantastic changes taking place. Most people will be terrified and will have no idea what is happening because elite power brokers have concealed vital information from the mass population and will continue to do so as long as they can cling to power. One vital bit of information being withheld is that some of us are travelers, or what has been termed star seeds, that is incarnated here on Earth in the last half century to help on the civilization and society level, willingly born into human bodies during this period of tremendous transformation to be the ground crew in humanity's Great Awakening. Many of these star seeds have not yet awakened. The Confederation stands by, ready to help if necessary. Individuals who have yet to awaken are those who have felt all their lives that they are somehow different, those who have a deep sense that they somehow do not belong here. Many of them will also have peculiar dreams and even visions of their lives on their own old home planets. The late past life regression hypnotherapist Dolores Cannon had identified and helped many star seeds understand their role and to adjust to their sometimes confusing experiences as incarnated humans on Earth. Many of these star seeds are in fact Pleiadians. This is why the tall blondes keep showing up. They have voluntarily come to help their families awaken to the assignments here on Earth.